speaking of Trump, he has spent his first days here using his new authority to rewrite American policy and undo a whole string of decisions made by former President Obama. And these are all executive actions. Now, if you remember, notice how quiet these filthy pigs in the Republican Party are, the ones in Congress. Remember when they just pissed their pants about Obama using executive orders because he couldn't get this filthy Republican cult to do anything that would indicate they were interested in governing the United States? Man. And they were constantly screaming about Obama was usurping the authority granted to the Congress and violating the Constitution and breaking the law and doing this and doing that. Well, all of a sudden, with Obama gone, I guess it's okay now to use executive action. Here's some that Trump has done. First of all, he is providing what he calls relief from the Affordable Care Act. Oh, thank God. I'm so glad I'm being relieved of the Affordable Care Act. Jesus Christ. Now I won't be able to get insurance because I have breast cancer. So, thank God I'm getting relief. His first executive order on the day this pig was sworn in involved what he called minimizing the economic burden of the Affordable Care Act. Tell that to somebody who's been using the Affordable Care Act to get dialysis, and without dialysis 3 times a week, they're going to die a very poisonous, painful, nasty death. Tell them that. His order minimizing the economic burden allows the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the heads of other departments and agencies to delay or pass over the implementation of any Affordable Care Act provision that would impose a financial burden on any state or a regulatory burden on any individual. Regulatory burden on an individual? Like, what does that mean? I'm not sure what that means. I certainly don't want a regulatory burden on me. Do you? How about the person that has to have chemotherapy? And if he doesn't get the chemotherapy, which makes him sick and vomit and diarrhea, but he's holding on to life because he's only 52 years old and he has children, and one of his married kids has a baby on the way, and he wants to live just a little longer. But Trump is making sure he doesn't have to face a regulatory burden, so his chemo will be cut off. These are Christians. Keep in mind, these are Christians. Yeah. Number 2, Mr. Trump has decided to freeze all regulations. All the regulations. Well, the pending regulations. Until they're approved by these thugs that he's appointed to lead these various agencies. This action was in a memorandum from White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. And it delays all regulations with the exception of health, safety, financial, or national security matters allowed by the Office of Management and Budget Director or something, or whatever that means. Number 3, Mr. Trump has decided to reinstate the so-called Mexico City abortion policy. That's a policy that blocks the use of U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund any foreign NGO that performs or promotes or talks about or thinks about abortion all over the world. Deep in the Amazon jungle where there might be a clinic, maybe in Malaysia or Indonesia or I don't know where. Ulaanbaatar, well, that's a city, right? Some poverty-stricken because it's run by thugs and criminals state in Africa. if you even think the word abortion. No money for you. No money for you. The Mexico City policy, by the way, was established by Reagan and has been rescinded by Democratic presidents and reinstated by Republican presidents ever since. And so it goes. Number 4, of course, is scrapping the TransPacific Partnership that was never ratified by the Senate, so scrapping it means absolutely nothing. Number 5, freezing the federal workforce. Now, all this stuff he's done by executive order. No representative of you or I or me or I had anything to say about this. Nor did through our representatives. Nothing, These are executive orders. So, 3 days ago, Trump issued a presidential memo that prohibits government agencies from hiring any new employees. The order does not apply to military personnel, of course, and the head of any executive department may exempt positions that include national security or public safety responsibilities. Well, that's good to know. 6 and 7 executive orders were about the Dakota Access and Keystone XL pipelines. The Dakota Access action instructs an expedited review and approval of the remaining construction and operation of the pipeline by the Army for Civil Works and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And the Keystone action invites TransCanada, the Canadian energy company behind the pipeline, to resubmit its application for a presidential permit to construct the pipeline, and also instructs our new Secretary of State, the head of ExxonMobil, to reach a final determination within 60 days. Jesus H. Christ. Maybe Rex Tillerson will turn it down because it's direct competition with ExxonMobil, isn't it? Well, no, oil is a fungible resource. It all goes into a certain pot, a kitty, if you will, and then people bid on it, and it doesn't make any difference if it's so-called ExxonMobil oil or Texaco oil or your mama's oil or Keystone XL pipeline oil. It doesn't matter. Number 8, last Tuesday, Trump issued an executive order to streamline environmental reviews of high-priority infrastructure projects. Streamline them. What is streamlining environmental reviews? What does that mean? That means just don't ask a bunch of probing questions. Don't ask anything like, well, is the construction project going to go over a water resource? A wetland? Are you going to have to drain a wetland? Are you going to have to destroy an estuary? Will this interfere? Yada, 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 yada. No more of those questions. Those are bullshit questions. Just tell us about the money. How much are we going to make from this? The order says that infrastructure projects in the United States, quote, have been routinely and excessively delayed by agency processes and procedures, end quote. Well, we got to bring a stop to that shit. So Trump ordered the chairman of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, Newspeak all over the goddamn place, to create expedited procedures and deadlines for environmental reviews and approvals for high-priority infrastructure projects. Yeehaw. Number 9, this executive order instructs the Secretary of Commerce to create a plan for pipelines created, repaired, or expanded in the United States to use materials and equipment produced in the United States, quote, to the maximum extent possible, end quote. It establishes that all steel and metal used in such pipelines be completely produced in the United States from the initial melting stage to the application of coatings. Well, that pretty much covers it, right? Which, because of the nature of globalization, assures us that the cost of laying all this pipeline will be increased, which at some point will filter back to you and me. We wind up paying for this shit. We do. One way or the other, we are going to pay for it. Just like his asinine wall